Look outside right now. That patchy, sickly yellow stretch of grass staring back at you isn't a mystery, it's a message. And for weeks, maybe months, you've been misreading it completely. I'm Eli Yoder, and I need you to think back to the last time you stood in your yard with a hose in your hand, soaking that yellow patch for the third night in a row, whispering to yourself that this time it'll work. It didn't work. It never works. And tonight I'm going to explain exactly why. Because the answer isn't the one you've been told. Your lawn isn't yellow because it's dehydrated. It's yellow because it's missing one single ingredient. Not water, not sunlight, not even the fertilizer sitting half used in your garage. One specific compound that your grass cannot survive without when it's sold 2 aisles away from where you'd ever think to look. At the pharmacy, next to the cold medicine and the adhesive bandages, for about $2. But before you run out and grab it, I have to walk you through something first, because this fix used on the wrong lawn, in the wrong situation, will not help you. It might even make things look worse before they get better if you don't know how to read your grass first. So stay with me, because by the end of this you'll know exactly what your lawn needs, and you'll never waste another dollar guessing again. Let's start with the real question. Not why is my lawn yellow? Everybody asks that. The real question is, what makes grass green in the first place? Because once you understand that, the yellow stops being confusing and starts being obvious. Every blade of grass gets its color from a pigment called chlorophyll. You learned this in 9th grade and then forgot it the second the test was over. So here's the refresher. Chlorophyll is the molecule that captures sunlight and turns it into usable energy for the plant. That process is photosynthesis, and it's the entire engine that keeps a lawn alive. No chlorophyll means no photosynthesis. No photosynthesis means no energy. And a plant with no energy doesn't just look bad. It's quietly starving, even while it's sitting in full sun, getting watered every single day. So when you see yellow grass, what you're actually looking at is a plant that has stopped manufacturing its own green pigment. The yellow was always there, hiding underneath. Chlorophyll was just covering it up. Once chlorophyll production drops, the mask comes off, and the true color underneath, pale, sickly yellow, shows through. Now here's where it gets interesting. Why would a plant just stop making the one molecule that keeps it alive? There are exactly 3 reasons, and I want you to really sit with this, because only one of them has anything to do with water. Reason 1 is drought. The plant doesn't have enough moisture to keep its internal systems running, chlorophyll production included. This is the obvious answer, the one everybody assumes, and the reason you've been out there every night with the hose. Reason 2 is a lack of nitrogen. Nitrogen is a core building block of the chlorophyll molecule itself. Without enough of it in the soil, grass simply can't manufacture pigment fast enough to keep up. This is why fertilizer greens up a lawn. Most bagged fertilizer is mostly nitrogen. This is also usually the second thing people try after watering fails. Reason 3 is the one nobody talks about. The one your local lawn service will never mention, because it doesn't fit neatly into a subscription plan. Magnesium deficiency. Magnesium sits at position 12 on the periodic table, and it plays a role in chlorophyll that almost nobody outside of a botany classroom knows about. At the literal center of every chlorophyll molecule, holding the whole structure together, is a single atom of magnesium. Remove it and the molecule cannot form. No structure, no pigment, no green. It doesn't matter how much nitrogen is in your soil or how much water you pour on. Without that one atom, your grass is chemically incapable of turning green. Picture it like an engine. You can have a full tank of gas, a spotless chassis, brand new tires, but without the engine itself, none of it moves. Nitrogen is the fuel. Water is necessary just to keep the whole system running. But magnesium is the engine. Without it, nothing fires. And here's the part that should genuinely frustrate you. Magnesium deficiency is one of the most widespread, least discussed nutrient problems in home lawns across the country. Almost nobody tests for it. Almost nobody mentions it, because the fertilizer industry has spent decades training you to believe that yellow grass automatically means buy more nitrogen. Sometimes it does. But if the actual problem sitting in your soil is magnesium, you can dump bag after bag of fertilizer on that lawn and watch absolutely nothing change, while your money disappears into a problem you never actually had. I told you this would change how you look at your yard. Now let's figure out which of these three problems is actually yours, because guessing wrong is exactly how people end up wasting an entire season. Go outside. Kneel down in the worst patch. Pull a single blade of grass and hold it up close, right in front of your face. If that blade is evenly yellow, the same washed-out color from base to tip, no variation, that's a nitrogen problem. The whole blade is struggling equally because the plant simply doesn't have enough raw material to build pigment anywhere along its length. But if you see something different, if the veins running down the blade are still green while the tissue between those veins has gone yellow, like green threads running through a yellow background, that is the unmistakable signature of magnesium deficiency. It even has a name: interveinal chlorosis. It's the calling card of a plant that has nitrogen available, but lacks the magnesium needed to actually put that nitrogen to work building chlorophyll. There's a third pattern too, and it's important you don't confuse it with the other two. If the grass isn't yellow at all, but brown, dry, and crunches under your fingers, that's drought, plain and simple. That one really does need water. So take inventory right now. Even uniform yellow, that's nitrogen. Yellow between green veins, that's magnesium. Brown and brittle, that's dehydration. Three completely different problems. Three completely different fixes. And most people have spent years throwing the same solution at all three, wondering why nothing ever sticks. If you've been watering and fertilizing this lawn for a long time and it still won't turn green, there's a very good chance you've had a magnesium problem this entire time. One that no amount of hose time was ever going to solve. All right, let's talk about the pharmacy fix and why on earth it's sitting in the bath and body aisle instead of the garden center, Epsom salt. Chemically, it's magnesium sulfate, the exact same white crystal powder people dissolve in bath water to soothe sore muscles has been sold on pharmacy shelves for well over a century. And it happens to be roughly 10% magnesium and 13% sulfur by weight. Both matter to a plant, but magnesium is the piece we actually care about here, because it's the missing atom that gets chlorophyll production running again. A standard bag runs you somewhere between $1.50 and $3 at nearly any drugstore or big box retailer. It's not with the fertilizer, it's not with the seed. It's tucked in with the bubble bath and the bath bombs, of all places. And that small, cheap bag is enough to treat an entire front yard, sometimes the back as well, depending on the size of your property. Here's exactly how to use it. And I'll give you two different approaches because your situation might call for one over the other. The first method is a liquid application, and it's the faster of the two. Dissolve 2 tablespoons of Epsom salt into 1 gallon of warm water. Stir it until every crystal has disappeared. No grit left at the bottom. Warm water speeds up the dissolving. Cold water works fine too, it just takes a little extra stirring. Pour the mixture into a pump sprayer and coat the yellow areas evenly. 1 gallon covers roughly 200 square feet, so a typical front yard will need 4 or 5 gallons total. Spray it on in the early morning or evening, when the sun isn't beating directly down, so the grass has time to actually absorb the magnesium through its blades and roots before it evaporates off the surface. Because the magnesium reaches the leaf tissue directly, this method tends to show visible change fastest, often within 3 to 5 days. The second method is a dry application, and honestly, it's the lazier option, and it works nearly as well. Using a broadcast spreader, the same one you'd use for grass seed or fertilizer, spread about 2 pounds of Epsom salt per 1,000 square feet. Set the spreader to a medium-low rate and make 2 passes at right angles to each other for even coverage. Water the lawn lightly afterward to help the crystals dissolve down into the soil. Over the following days, the magnesium works its way into the root zone. This method takes a little longer to show results, usually 5 to 7 days. But the effect tends to last longer because it's feeding the roots directly rather than just coating the leaf surface. Which one should you use? If your lawn is severely yellow and you want to see change fast, spray it. If it's only mildly affected or you're more interested in a longer-lasting correction, go dry. And if you want both the quick visual win and the lasting fix, spray first for the immediate color. Then follow up a week later with the dry application to correct the soil itself. Now, I want to be honest with you about something most channels covering this topic conveniently skip, and it's probably going to cost me a few angry comments, but I'd rather tell you the truth and lose some subscribers than tell you a comfortable lie and keep them. Epsom salt is not magic. It will not fix every yellow lawn on the planet. A lot of what circulates online about this stuff is wildly overstated. Here's the actual truth. Epsom salt works exceptionally well when your soil genuinely lacks magnesium, and a lot of soils genuinely do. Sandy soil loses magnesium quickly through drainage. Acidic soil holds less magnesium than form plants can actually use. Certain regions, sandy coastal areas, older acidic farmland, parts of the Pacific Northwest, run magnesium poor more often than not. But if your soil already has plenty of magnesium, adding more isn't going to make your lawn any greener. There's no such thing as extra green once the plant already has what it needs to run at full chlorophyll production. Beyond that point, additional magnesium just moves through the soil unused. It won't damage anything at a reasonable dose, but it won't help either. And if your real issue is nitrogen or drought, Epsom salt does nothing for those problems. Magnesium without nitrogen is an engine with no fuel in the tank. You genuinely need both working together. This is exactly why I had you do that blade inspection earlier. The interveinal pattern, green veins, yellow in between, is your green light that magnesium is the missing piece and Epsom salt is the right tool. Uniform yellow across the whole blade means you need nitrogen, not magnesium. Brown and crunchy means you need water, not either one. I would much rather you diagnose this correctly than buy a bag of Epsom salt on my word alone and have it do nothing. Because when it doesn't help with the wrong problem, that's not the product failing. That's the wrong tool being used on the wrong job. For those of you who did the test and actually found that vein pattern, or whose soil fits the profile I described, here's the timeline you can expect once you apply it. For the first couple of days, you won't see anything above ground. That doesn't mean it isn't working. The roots are absorbing magnesium and shuttling it up into the leaves, and new chlorophyll is being assembled behind the scenes. It just hasn't accumulated enough yet to show. Around day 3 to 5, you'll notice the first subtle shift. The yellow tint starts to soften, particularly on new growth near the tips. It might not jump out at a glance, but if you've been staring at this lawn every day out of frustration, you'll catch it. By day 5 to 7 is when it really becomes obvious. The grass moves from that sickly yellow-green into a real, unmistakable green, not deep and dark yet, but clearly, visibly healthier. The vein pattern starts to fade as chlorophyll fills back in evenly. If you followed up with the dry application, Days 7 through 14 is where the soil-delivered magnesium kicks in and the color really deepens. By the 2-week mark, your lawn is often noticeably greener than the neighbor's, when he's the one dropping $40 a month on a fertilizer subscription, while you spent $2 one time. Now let me tell you about something I stumbled onto by accident that took this from good to genuinely impressive. The first time I tried Epsom salt on my own lawn, it worked exactly as described. The yellow faded, green returned within about a week, but the color wasn't quite as rich as I wanted. It was green, technically, but not that deep saturated, almost blue-green you see on a well-kept golf course. Then I remembered iron, specifically ferrous sulfate, which plays a supporting role in chlorophyll production, not sitting at the center of the molecule like magnesium does, but acting as a helper in the enzyme reactions that assemble it. Iron deficiency and magnesium deficiency frequently show up together, particularly in alkaline soil, and correcting only one while ignoring the other leaves you with half the improvement you could actually get. So I combined them. 2 tablespoons of Epsom salt and 2 tablespoons of ferrous sulfate together in 1 gallon of water, applied as a single spray. The difference was immediate and dramatic. Within about 5 days, the lawn wasn't just green. It was deep, saturated, almost impossibly rich green, the kind that makes people slow down while driving past your house. And the cost for that combined mix? About $3 total. $3 for a result that costs upward of $200 when a lawn company sells you their premium greening treatment, which, if you ever read the label, is just iron and magnesium in a nicer bottle with a nicer name, marked up dramatically. Same chemistry, same green, a completely different price tag. Now, a few important warnings, because being safe with this matters just as much as the results. Don't exceed the recommended dose. 2 tablespoons per gallon for the spray, 2 pounds per 1,000 square feet for the dry method. More is not better here. Excess magnesium in soil can start crowding out calcium uptake, and calcium is essential for strong cell walls in the grass. Too much magnesium relative to calcium can leave you with weak, floppy blades that are more vulnerable to disease. At the doses described, this isn't a concern. It only becomes a problem if you decide to double or triple the amount, chasing faster results. Don't apply this to soil that's already magnesium rich. Certain clay soils and soils formed from volcanic material naturally run high in magnesium already, when piling more on top doesn't help and can contribute to that same imbalance. The only real way to know for certain is a soil test through your local extension office, typically $15 to $25, when it will tell you precisely what your soil has and what it's missing. It's honestly the single smartest investment you can make in your lawn. Better than any product, including this one, because it removes all the guesswork. Understand that this isn't a permanent fix for chronically deficient soil. Epsom salt is water-soluble, which means it washes out with rain and irrigation over time. If your soil runs low on magnesium as a baseline, plan to reapply roughly every 4 to 6 weeks through the growing season. For something longer lasting, dolomitic lime slowly releases both magnesium and calcium over months while also correcting soil pH. But that's a topic for a different conversation entirely. And if you have a dog that likes to graze on grass, know that the mildly salty residue right after application can be a little too tempting for them. Epsom salt is generally not dangerous in small amounts, but larger quantities can upset a pet's stomach. Just keep animals off the treated area until the next watering or rainfall washes the surface crystals in, usually just a few hours. Let me leave you with a simple seasonal rhythm that ties everything together. If you want a lawn that keeps improving year over year instead of needing constant expensive intervention. Early in the season, focus on pre-emergent weed prevention. Once temperatures rise, check your soil pH and correct it if it's too acidic. As broadleaf weeds show up, treat them directly. Once the lawn is weed-free and established for summer, that's your window for the magnesium and iron combination to maximize your green. If heat stress causes brown patches mid-summer, address those separately. As fall approaches, reapply pre-emergent for cooler season weeds, overseed any thin or bare spots, and give the lawn one more light magnesium boost before it goes dormant for winter. Add up a full year of this approach: the pre-emergent treatments, the pH correction, the iron and magnesium combo, the overseeding, and you're typically looking at somewhere around $60 to $70 total for the entire year. Compare that to a professional lawn program running 4 to 6 visits annually, often between $600 and $1,200, using the exact same core ingredients, repackaged into proprietary blends with a massive markup attached. You're not getting a worse result paying less. In a lot of cases, you're getting a better one, because you're actually correcting the soil instead of just masking a symptom season after season. That yellow patch you've been staring at isn't stubborn. It's not broken. It's just been asking for the one thing nobody told you it needed. Now you know what that is. You know how to confirm it, and you know exactly how to fix it for less than the cost of your morning coffee. If this helped you finally understand what's actually happening in your yard, stick around, because there's a lot more where this came from. The exact mowing habit that makes every one of these treatments work even better, and it costs you absolutely nothing. Drop a comment and tell me what you found when you checked your own grass. Uniform yellow, the green vein pattern, or brown and crispy. I read every single one, and I want to know exactly what you're dealing with out there. Let me back up for a second, though, because I know some of you are already halfway to the car, and I want to save you a wasted trip. Before you buy anything, do the blade test one more time. Not because I don't trust you to remember it, but because I've seen how easy it is to convince yourself you're seeing the pattern you want to see, instead of the one that's actually there. Pull 3 or 4 blades from different spots in the yellow patch, not just one. Look at them in daylight, not under a porch light at 9 at night, when everything looks a little washed out anyway. If 2 out of 4 blades show that vein pattern and 2 look uniformly pale, trust the majority, and consider that you might be dealing with a mild case of both nitrogen and magnesium deficiency at once, which is more common than you'd think, especially in older lawns that haven't been tested or fed properly in years. In that case, the smart move isn't to choose one treatment over the other. It's to apply a light, balanced fertilizer alongside the Epsom salt a week or 2 apart, so you're not overwhelming the root system with everything at once. I also want to address something a viewer asked me after an earlier video, because I think a lot of you are silently wondering the same thing. Does it matter what kind of grass you have? Cool season versus warm season, fescue versus Bermuda versus zoysia? The honest answer is that magnesium deficiency doesn't discriminate by grass type. Every single species of turf grass relies on the same chlorophyll chemistry, the same magnesium atom sitting at the center of the same molecule. What does change slightly is how fast different grasses respond and how much magnesium they tend to hold on to naturally. Fescue and ryegrass, common in cooler climates, tend to show results a little faster because they have a more active root system during the cooler months when a lot of you are watching this. Bermuda and zoysia, common in the south, can take a day or 2 longer, particularly if the soil temperature is on the cooler side of their preferred range. Either way, the underlying fix doesn't change. Only your patience might need to stretch a little further, depending on what's growing in your yard. One more thing I think is worth saying plainly. because I don't want you walking away from this video thinking Epsom salt is some kind of cure-all you should be tossing on your lawn every single week just to be safe. It isn't, and treating it that way is exactly how you end up creating the calcium imbalance I warned you about earlier. This is a targeted correction for a specific identifiable problem. Once your lawn greens up and stays green through a full growing season, you don't need to keep reapplying out of habit. Test your soil again the following spring. If the magnesium levels have stabilized, back off the treatment and let your lawn maintain itself with a normal, balanced feeding schedule. The goal was never to make Epsom salt a permanent crutch. The goal was to fix the actual deficiency so your grass can do what it's supposed to do on its own. I get asked constantly whether this works on new sod or a freshly seeded lawn. And the answer is yes, but with one adjustment. Wait until the new grass has been mowed at least 2 or 3 times before applying anything beyond water. Young root systems are still establishing themselves, and while Epsom salt at the recommended dose won't harm them, there's no urgency either, since a brand new lawn typically hasn't had time to develop a deficiency yet. Save the treatment for lawns that are established and showing the actual yellowing pattern we talked about. If you've made it this far in the video, I want to leave you with the single most important habit out of everything I've covered today, because products come and go. But this mindset is what actually separates a lawn that thrives for years from one that limps along on quick fixes. Diagnose before you treat, every single time. It's tempting to reach for whatever worked for your neighbor, or whatever a video told you was the magic answer, without ever confirming that your lawn actually has the problem being described. That's how people end up with a garage full of half-used bags of fertilizer, soil amendments, and treatments that never should have been bought in the first place, because the underlying issue was never what they assumed it was. 5 minutes on your knees looking at a single blade of grass will save you more money and more frustration than any product on this list. I'm Eli Yoder, and I'll see you in the next one.